Right, so we're now on the fitness with the GB men, and they're going to start going through with a few questions and answers to Dale and Jamie. So if we just go through who's on the call. So if you just say who you are and which club you are from, or if you're not in a club, where you are from. So we'll start with Dale.
I'm Dale Forsdyke. I'm one of the two people involved in the kind of the physical development of the GB senior team.
Jamie?
Yep, so I'm Jamie Salter and I'm Dale's partner in crime working with the GB senior team.
Josh?
I'm Josh Murphy and previously played for the RNC squad and I'm from Hereford.
Matt?
Matt Loftus, currently playing for Northern All-Stars.
Caleb?
Caleb Nanavi, currently playing for Northern All-Stars.
Youssef?
I'm Youssef Herrera and I play for Birmingham.
And then Catherine?
Yep, Catherine, Goalball UK, a little bit of everything, coaching, officiating, club development.
Stephen?
Yeah, Stephen from Goalball UK, and I'm the Children and Young People's Officer.
And finally, Tom.
Yeah, Tom from Goalball UK, Club and Competitions Officer. Bit of everything really. Do a bit of everything, so all good.
Right, so we'll start off with, then I'll just pass it over to Dale and Jamie. If you just want to set the scene based on what you've done over lockdown with the GB men, how you started and how you've gone through it. So Dale first.
Yeah, so I think it's important that when we look at what we've done with the men's senior team, it's been really iterative and it's been a learning experience. And by that, I mean, we never presumed to go in a plan that would be a magic bullet that suddenly all the players would be able to complete, would come out the other side and they'd be able to adhere to that. And they would have had adaptations and gains. I think me and Jamie, and correct me, Jamie, as well, we went into it with an open mind that it would have to be a bit of a learning experience between us and the players to find out something that worked as a group, individually, and then under what conditions would they work. So it has been a learning experience in supporting those. Jamie might want to go into some of the specifics, but something I really want to talk about is how the lockdown experience has allowed me and Jamie an added connectivity with the players that prior to the lockdown situation, we never actually had the luxury of doing it. So we've been having weekly drop-ins with the players. And so coming through this, we probably know what, the things that make each of these players tick. They should all have individual plans. We've been meeting up on a weekly basis to check in with their wellness, what's working, what's not working, to have a group workout as well. But actually, going forwards, I think that the way we've managed to work is something we will carry forwards with this almost remote management of athletes. Josh has said he's in Hereford, Matt's in Newcastle, Caleb's in Sheffield. We're a bit diverse and sparse, whereas you're kind of having to use Zoom as a mode to be able to check in with players and manage players has been superb. And it gives us that added interconnectivity, which has been really important. Jamie, do you want to go through some of the more specific stuff?
Yeah, so reinforce everything that Dale said there about the connection that it's allowed us with the group that we work with. But just as a little bit of a backdrop, what we were doing prior to lockdown was that Dale and myself are based at a university, and we were having maybe monthly meetings with the players at camps. So we would go and spend a day with the players. We generally conduct some tests on the players not every month, but every couple of months, just to see where they were at. We'd spend time on the court with them. We'd just observe sometimes, and other times we would get involved and deliver some strength and conditioning based work. So that was how we were working at monthly meetings, and generally it would be quite a crammed day. So obviously the players court time is precious, and Faye, the head coach, wanted to look after that. So we would kind of get in, do our business, and then just step back and allow the rest of the sessions to go on. But as Dale said, when this started, we initially gave the players a home program and asked them to do it across 3 or 4 days of the week that involved bike sessions, rowing sessions for those that had a rower, and then some home-based conditioning sessions like, you know, body weight exercises. But that kind of went on, and obviously the longer that the lockdown went on, which was an unknown at that point, we kind of had to just change it. And we were doing weekly meetings and we had quizzes. So alongside the nutritionist Jodie, we had quizzes that were health and fitness based. So general informative quizzes really about some of the food choices that the players would have. And we would have a catch up at the start of the call about the players' well-being. Alongside that, we put in a weekly well-being monitor where the players on their phones or on their computers could go on and just tell us how they were feeling, because what we didn't want to see was a huge drop in their kind of wellness from, you know, negative psychological feelings, but also sleep and general just lethargy and things like that. So we wanted to keep a gauge of that. But then, as Dale said, it was iterative, and we started to then host workouts. So for the last probably 3 months, we've been having a Tuesday morning and we all work out together. So Dale and myself lead the sessions. If one of us leads it, the other one generally joins in and helps to demonstrate the exercises, and the majority of the lads come on and get stuck in and work hard together. So that weekly drop in and that first 10 or 15 minutes where we just have a catch up, how everybody's doing, update the players, but it's not really a specified, you know, topic. We just talk to the players, we get to know them, find out what they've been doing, and we've had quite a lot of humor, we've had a lot of banter, and we feel that we know the players a lot better now, but we also know that they've been working hard during lockdown, so it's had numerous benefits for us.
I guess we've got a really good camaraderie with the players now going forward because of this, which has been brilliant. The recipe that we seem to have settled on a Tuesday, so they've still got their individual plan. We've had kind of support sessions individually for players, so they've got that. Our secret recipe that seems to work, and maybe Josh, Caleb can testify, and maybe Matt, is we meet on a Tuesday. There's normally a little bit of a catch up, and then it's just getting down to business. So we tend to have an activation exercises. We then do some more muscle specific or region specific exercises before we finish with a lovely bit of Tabata. And so for people that might not be familiar with Tabata as an exercise mode, it's pretty much high intensity exercises that you do for 20 seconds, have 10 seconds off, 20 seconds, 10 seconds off, and you repeat that, normally a cycle of 8 times, have a rest, and then repeat again. And we seem to have found the players that have kind of responded to that sort of stimulus, Jamie, haven't we?
Yeah, we found that it's an hour. The call's an hour. Sometimes it goes on a bit longer. It was when we were doing the quizzes, it was a little bit longer, but we generally work hard for 45 minutes. You know, as Dale said, we warm up a little bit. We activate some of the muscles. We usually have upper body exercises, lower body exercises, and some core exercises, followed by the Tabata stuff. And because we can see each other doing it, we can obviously provide. It's limited, but we can provide some feedback on technique. So we can tell the players, you know, try this exercise, try this variation. Some of the lads don't like doing certain things or are limited based on their equipment. So some of them, like Josh Murphy, I think he's borrowed Fitness First equipment and he's got a full gym set up. But some of the players have just got bands. So we have to adapt the session, but we can do that with them live. And then now we've got to know what players have. We've been able to do it, but I think it's good, and it is hard, and the players do have to work hard. But me and Dale set the players a challenge probably prior to Christmas of we want the GB men's squad to be the fittest and most athletic GB team in the world. It's not a case of, you know, we just want these guys to be better. We're setting them the challenge. We want our group of players to be the team that other people look at and go, they are in good shape and able to, you know, to withstand the highest level of competition and repeatedly do it. So we've done our best to work towards that goal.
And you know, to be honest, we're really super excited to see what that looks like transferred onto a court when they eventually return to, you know, goalball action, the technical and tactical stuff. And we're really super excited to do a repeat of their physical testing, because I think some of them will have come on a good amount, despite us being in this very strange, confined situation.
Yeah.
So, Josh, we'll go through the players. Josh, how have you found the last 3-4 months of exercises, fitness and training then?
So it's been a bit of an evolving situation for me because I'm based in Hereford, but I have family in Northampton. I'm kind of back and forth between those two locations on I wouldn't say regular basis, but like, you know, I have 2 locations that I'm at. And at first, beginning of lockdown, I had no equipment. Nobody kind of saw this coming, and it was a bit of a smack because, like, as soon as gyms were gone, it was hard for me to access exercise. But one of the first things GB Squad did was issue everyone 2 resistance bands, a light resistance and a heavy resistance, which meant we was able to do some resistance exercises, even if it wasn't necessarily a heavy weight, but just that little bit of conditioning, which meant that we weren't just doing nothing. And as Dale and Jamie said, we were issued programs pretty early on. I think it was in the first couple of weeks, and that then built onto, you know, we had all this excess time with lockdown, which allowed me to build an exercise regime, and thanks to backing the best as well, get some more equipment, even with the shortages that the UK faced with like fitness equipment and stuff. So I was able to kind of build a bit of a home gym and work from there. And then now gyms are reopened, and allowed to, you know, go back and really hit hard with some good strength exercises because of continued training during lockdown. Fortunately, I already had a spin bike at home, so I was able to also continue cardio training, even like probably prior to most of the other boys, because I already had that equipment available. I don't know how many of the others already had access to that. But yeah, it was a bit of a lesson in adaptability, like how quick can we switch from being able to do this and still get a reasonable benefit from it.
Caleb, how have you managed then through the lockdown period? What difficulties have you found?
So my main difficulty was not having a piece of equipment to do some cardio with, and not being able to go out originally at the beginning of lockdown to be able to do any kind of proper cardio. So over the time, I've managed to, like with Dale and Jamie's program, managed to do some of the body weight, explosive exercises, kind of Tabata type thing, interval type training. Mm-hmm. And I helped keep my cardio to a decent level until I managed to get myself a spin bike, which is added to my potential to actually work and actually develop my cardio more over time. But I found the group sessions are helping a lot as well, just to really push yourself, because you can push yourself as much as you possibly can when you're training by yourself, but it's slightly different when you have the rest of the team and watching everyone else train. It's slightly different. You slightly get a bit more of a boost, and you get a bit more of a adrenaline to really push yourself even more, past some limits and barriers that you would get like naturally training by yourself. So it's getting to the point where it's great. I'm feeling good now, but I'm feeling like getting back in the gym and being able to lift more heavy weights and not rely on what I've got at home. Obviously, because you can only have so much weights at home, and if you don't have reinforced floors, it's not really useful to do heavy stuff at home. So it's at a point where I'm raring to get back into the gym and can't wait to do some more programs and stuff, but more gym-based stuff.
Okay. We've just got a new one coming in. Abu has just come in. So if Abu, you can just introduce yourself, just say your name and where you're from, just for when this goes out in recording, everyone will know who's on the call.
Hi, my name is Abu Bakr from Manchester, and I've been doing exercise at home sometimes, or trying to do some activities at home. And for the first time this month, I've been going to the boxing gym.
Okay, thank you. We'll come back to you in a few minutes, Abu Bakr, okay? Right, so who's Matt? How have you coped over lockdown then? What difficulties have you found?
So I struggled with lockdown because before lockdown came about, I was setting a routine with the gym. Like, I had people that I train with. I was setting the same routine. It was working. I was losing weight at the time, like trimming my body up and stuff. And then all of a sudden lockdown came and it was like, oh, gyms are shut. And to be fair, I was quite fortunate because I had quite a lot of the gym equipment already in the garage that I've like acquired over the years and stuff. But for me, it was the motivation knowing I'm not going in a gym where I'm in like the environment I know. I'm going into sometimes a cold, wet garage. And it was finding the motivation to train.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the plus side, lockdowns helped us in a way with the stuff we've done with Dale and Jamie with the bands and stuff, because it's allowed us to work on like niggling injuries or past injuries and strengthen the areas with resistance around like the areas that are like damaged or have been injured in the past. So I'm hoping when I get back onto the court, the work I've done with the bands will prolong me, like help us play longer without having to take breaks for injuries and stuff.
That's good. Youssef, have you got any questions you'd like to ask the 3GB players regarding what they've done and anything you could do or learn from them?
Not at the moment, no.
Yeah.
Can I jump in, Steve?
Yeah, go for it.
I know a lot of our goalballers are a little bit apprehensive about going back to the gym. Obviously, there's a lot of changes have taken place with social distancing. So some people are actually, I know, thinking of cancelling membership and using that money to buy some home equipment. So we're talking about, a reasonable budget. So from a, cardio point of view, a shopping list, is it very much individualised down to the person, or would you say, oh, I'd definitely get a spin bike rather than a rower, or look at a treadmill, or look at a cross trainer? Is there any kind of advice there, thinking about the fitness we need for goalball?
I think on this, it's a really good question, and in terms of, equipment wise, I think it is down to personal preference. Goalball is a game that is highly demanding from the upper body and the lower body. So whatever you do, you want to be incorporating both upper and lower body, because you have to get up off the floor, you have to throw, but ultimately your power comes from your legs from a lot of that. So that regard, I think you could use either. We've had our players on the bike because it's easier quite often for VI athletes to sit on a bike than it is to run, for example, outside or somewhere like that. But equally, we've also had them doing high intensity interval sessions where they don't necessarily need much equipment, and we found those to be equally variable, because quite often what people do when they go on a bike or a treadmill or a cross trainer or a rower, unless you deliberately do high intensity interval sessions where you're deliberately raising the intensity and dropping it, is they do steady state exercise. So they might run for, as we were talking to Josh before, about 5K or row for a certain speed, and that's probably not what we would recommend, because goalball is a highly intermittent sport whereby you might play for 10-20 seconds and then there's a rest while the ball goes out of play, and then there's a change or whatever happens in the game. So it's a period of high intensity intervals rather than steady state. So my advice would be a rower, a bike, a treadmill, whatever is personal preference. I don't think there's a huge difference in that if you want to work, but what you do on that, I think, is really important, that it's interval based, and therefore you could get away with not buying that and having a couple of dumbbells, kettlebells, some bands, as the lads have mentioned, that have been highly useful because they're really versatile and you can do lots, and therefore do something like a high intensity interval bodyweight session whereby you're strengthening, but also your heart and lungs are working at the same time. I think that would be a really good and efficient way of using your time.
And just to add to that, it kind of just summarises Jamie's point, which is they'd need some equipment like a band, medicine ball, kettlebell, dumbbells, to be able to give some external load, but only, again, if maybe someone's looked at the movement quality. If we've got somebody that actually knows, I'm not particularly confident at moving, actually just moving their body and body weight only would be absolutely fine. I give the example of doing a squat, me and Jamie would never say, oh, let's do a squat with a kettlebell or a barbell unless the technique's good. So for many goalball players, that might be a little bit less confident around their technique. Actually, just doing body weight only exercises would be good. And it's regarding the kind of, do they buy a spin bike or do they buy a rower or a treadmill? Again, a lot of it comes down to their confidence on moving. The bike seems to be something that most athletes feel comfortable with, but all three are important because goalball players need a good aerobic base. You know, for the length of the match, often multiple matches in a day. So a good aerobic base and then some way to maybe load upper and lower in the trunk is going to be important.
Catherine, does that answer your questions?
Hopefully.
Can I ask a question to anybody who can answer it?
Go for it.
What do you see, can you give your main key points for an effective warm-up?
Good question, Yusuf. So part of the resources that we've done for this actually is we've added a crib sheet, a step-by-step guide of a warm-up, but we've also added a video of a warm-up. And I guess in summary of that, that's on YouTube, on the Goalball UK YouTube channel, and you can have a look at that. But the summary is, you really want, we use a ramp format. So raise is the R, so we want to raise our heart rate, our body temperature, our breathing rate, and also the raise part stimulates some mental focus, because you know we've been doing all sorts of things have been going on during the day, and then you're on the court or you're getting ready for your training session, then you want to get in the zone. So raise is kind of that first stage. Now that can be done just, you know, jogging up and down the court, side steps, shuffles, anything really that's movement based, but will increase that heart rate and breathing rate mainly. The next part is activate. So we want to activate those key muscles that are about to use sport. So as I mentioned before, goalball is upper and lower body sport. You obviously throw and obviously defend with your upper body a lot of the time, but you're also using your lower body to generate power and get up off the floor. So we want to activate both our upper and lower body muscles. The next part is mobilized. So it's really important that we can take our joints through their full range of motion. If we're only limited to certain ranges of motion, say for example our shoulder, and it's only going part the way over our head, that's going to limit the amount of power that we can produce when we're throwing the ball in particular shots. So the muscles that you activate, we then want to make sure that we take through an extended range of motion. And a warm-up is a really good opportunity to increase our flexibility and mobility. Not just warm up for the event, but also over time, we can actually improve our performance. And then the last part is the P, which is the big word potentiate, which basically means we want to be at match or training intensity when we finish our warm up. What we don't want to do is do a really nice warm up and do lots of mobility exercises and be at a low intensity, and then be asked to go straight into a competitive goalball match and someone throws a ball at you really fast and you're not ready for it. So really high intensity activities such as sprinting 6 meters as if you were going to get the ball before it crossed over the line, or getting up off the floor into a sprint, those kind of actions that you do in a game that are the highest intensity of your sport, add them in towards the end of your warm-up. That would be a really nice gradually increased intensity of the warm-up.
And I'm pleased you asked about warm-ups, because again, across all sports, the warm-up is hugely valuable for four major reasons. One is it's going to prepare you physically. 2, it's going to prepare you mentally. 3 is, you know, fingers crossed. And again, there's good evidence to suggest that the right warm-up will prevent injuries. So more court availability for you and other goalball players. And the 4th one is actually, just by doing a good warm-up regularly, you're going to improve your fitness. So if everyone across the kind of the goalball family does a really robust warm-up, actually, we're just going to end up with fitter goalball players as well over time.
Yeah. Just on that point that Dale mentioned there, I recorded the video for this the other day, and I did the warm-up, and due to my limited videoing skills, I had to do it a couple of times, and I was sore the next day. And I'm, you know, fairly regularly am I doing physical activity and exercise, and I could feel the next day that there was some soreness. So even for someone who is fairly active and does exercises like this regularly, it had some effect on me. So if you're new to doing this kind of thing, or you're wanting to develop your strength or your mobility, I think by doing this, as Dale said, regularly, and when we say regularly, I think 2 or 3 times a week would be a good amount. I think you'd notice a difference pretty quickly.
Does that answer your question, Youssef?
Yeah, thank you. That was a very good answer. Thanks.
Can I ask a question?
Go for it.
So basically, so when Goalball actually starts and you're in a tournament, how will be players? So if someone blocks it, how will be the other players be getting the ball because you can't be near someone of the new rules? So how will the players be? Will they be communicating with each other to get the ball, or what will be the process? And the other one will be, so when you're between matches, should you still do stretches and warm up, or should you have a break?
I'll answer your first question. We are at the moment putting plans together for tournaments of how we'll operate under tournament conditions under COVID rules and guidelines. That'll come out in a few weeks' time. At the moment, we're just on the back to training process. So once we've put the return to competition guidance together, that'll come out. So hopefully that answers your first question with what to do on the court once you're back competing. The second question, anyone want to answer that one?
Yeah, can you repeat the question again, Abel?
So basically, when you're playing in matches or even at training and you have a gap in between from the first to the third match, should you still be doing stretches and warm up in between as well, or should you just have a break?
Good question. So obviously before your first match, you would do a good extensive warm-up, one like we discussed just now.
Yes.
And I guess it depends on the time gap between the events you're talking about. So if you're back to back almost and you've got a short gap, and I'm talking short as in less than half an hour, I think a short rewarming of maybe 5 minutes to get those pumping again, that would be fine. I think if that's the case, you can just kind of keep ticking over almost for that half an hour, rewarm to a decent intensity for 5 minutes or so, and then you go back into that game. If it's longer than that and it's an hour to 2 hours maybe over lunch, or you know, maybe there's been other games in between, then my advice would be to do a similar, maybe not quite as intense, but a fairly standard warm-up to get back into that. Because what happens when you rest, if you've had 2 hours where you've been inactive after doing activity, is waste products that we build up during the exercise start to pool in our muscles, which is part of the recovery process and completely normal. But what you don't want is performing whilst they're stationary in those muscles, because they'll only make it harder for you to perform effectively. So by doing a rewarming, a good rewarm, we'll able to move that blood around the body, and we'll be fresh, ready to go again.
There's no real hard and fast rule to this about either, because different, even in a sport like football in the Premier League, different teams will do things slightly differently. I guess the important thing is that between matches, you're not, and your teammates are completely inactive and passive, as in you just sat down on a bench just waiting and then just expecting that you're going to jump straight into the next match and be absolutely fine. Certainly, I think that me and Jamie would advocate that, if that, keeping active between games, yes, have a sit down, but again, try and spend some time moving around and being active. And again, good practice, I would say, that I've seen on in other professional sport, is that reactivation. If it's less than half an hour, short reactivation before you then go out on that court, hopefully ready for thunder. Like I say, any longer, you would want to almost redo that warm-up again, because it's almost like you've had a prolonged period of time. You need to, again, get your body and mind prepared once again.
Thank you.
Josh, Caleb, Matt, how would you say you react to what's just the question there? How do you warm up between matches or keep yourself going in between? What's your thoughts on it?
Well, for us personally, with the RNC squad previously, and I think most of the teams is the same. I mean, they all iterate on the same kind of principle, is that pre-match you always do a 5 to 10 minute warm up, throwing the ball around, defending, getting into the motions of play. And I think that is key to performing at your peak ability during a match, is having that pre-game warm up, so you're you're in the flow of moving, getting down, getting the ball. Obviously other teams do different things, but there aren't, I don't know a team at the elite level that don't do pre-game warm-ups and utilize the ability to use their court area to throw a ball around and potentially do some defense work.
Any more questions, anyone?
Can I ask the GB boys? So, which exercise is the one that makes you groan the most, but you know it's good for you? So we often use burpees as a bit of a punishment tool. And watching the video, the bear walks to me looked very much like groan worthy. So what's the one thing for the boys that they don't like doing, but they know it's blooming good for them?
Yeah, for me, it's got to be the bear walks, especially in the warm-up, because they're designed to get you warm. They're not designed to be enjoyable. So they do the job, they get you warm, but yeah, you're making some funny faces in the mirror in the gym when you're going back and forwards.
I would say, I mean, you mentioned there that burpees are used as a punishment exercise, but in the grand scheme of goalball, they're a really good exercise, because you're getting down, getting up in an explosive manner, and though you're not necessarily going to be jumping up once you have the ball, to have that explosive potential is really beneficial for throwing a ball.
Thank you, Josh. I'm going to quote that to all my players in future. They never believed me before. I think it's just me, just being nasty, but thank you very much.
Yeah, they are definitely groan worthy.
My personal one is definitely burpees as well. My hamstrings are not good for them, but they are a really good exercise for, like what Josh said, they're good for replicating goalball and the explosive speed you need.
And who's the best planker?
Say again?
Who's the best planker?
We haven't really done any plank comparisons.
It's been a while, yeah.
We could go for our best times. I did a 2-minute plank the other day, but
the side plank always gets a few groans.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
A side plank with a leg lift. So obviously it's super effective for goalball, because it very much replicates a defensive position. So being laid on one side, bracing at the trunk, because what we don't want is saggy tummies. So when the ball hits it either bounces over or bounces back out. So we want nice braced trunks, and we've done a lot of side planking, and we've got to the stage now where most of the lads have got their leg up in the air, their top leg, which is very, very demanding. And that's the point where on the Zoom call, everyone goes quiet and stops talking, and then you just hear groans. So that would be the one from looking on at what the guys find. The side plank with the leg lift is a challenge. Just on that as well, the bear crawl, super effective exercise, because shoulder stability is something that goalball players really, really need in terms of both defending and attacking. And the crawl requires a lot of stabilization around the shoulder, a lot of core strength, and you're moving. So it's a really good warm-up exercise to incorporate. And I did it on the video over, I think I did it over about 10 meters. You could do it over 5 meters and just do it a few more times. You could do it over a bigger distance, whatever you want. And there's loads of variations of that. So it's worth playing around with.
We get a few groans, don't we, Jamie, when as the activation exercise, we use an exercise called the Inchworm, which is a hamstring lengthening exercise. Again, you get a bit of shoulder stability in there. You're kind of in the press-up position, and you walk your feet up towards your hands till eventually your legs are straight. And we get a few groans as good morning hamstrings on a Tuesday, isn't it?
Yeah. Heard a few pings as well, haven't we? The hamstrings just pinging as we do it.
Right, have we got any more questions, or I think we're about done? We've been on 35 minutes. I think that's we're almost there.
Sorry, can I just ask a question?
Yep, go for it, Yusuf.
So we've discussed a lot about warm up and during tournaments and what have you. How do you think an effective cool down should be done at the end of the day?
Good question. So the aim of the cool down is obviously different to the warm up. So the aim of the cool down is to speed up your recovery. So a couple of things we need to do there. We need to bring our breathing rate, heart rate, body temperature back down to what will be considered near resting. It won't be exactly where we want it to be, but that will help us to do that. And what we need there is the opposite, where we want to increase the intensity. We want to gradually reduce the intensity. So we want to bring that down into more of a passive, maybe stretching, yoga type movements would be really good in those, Yusuf. So we're trying to stretch the muscles that we did before, some active or even some dynamic stretches still, but at a much lower intensity than before. And the main focus is just to bring down your breathing, your heart rate, and your body temperature towards resting levels. Anything to add, Dale, on those?
Yeah. Again, it's a really good question, and where the research sits, kind of stretching gets a bit of a panning in terms of actually, does it do anything? Does it prevent us getting sore? You'd be a really brave person not to do on-court stretching or foam rolling or something like that. But to offset that a little bit, you need to think about your recovery as being more than just stretching. There's lots of other different recovery options that you've got that may well just be as effective. So let me go through some of those. A good night's sleep, having fun after the training or after a competition, so you get that cognitive rest. Having a good meal nice and quickly, having some protein, rich food before bed. So it's important that we see recovery as having lots of little strategies, as opposed to, I'm just going to lower my pulse rate down and doing some on-court stretching.
Yeah, and to expand on that a little bit, I'd spoken to both Dale and Jamie in the past about how I had heard about a study that says about the fact that stretching beforehand, obviously we're talking about cool down here, but beforehand can decrease performance. And and you'd given a really good explanation about to do with the muscle fibers and how that all works. And I think it's really important to understand that stretching isn't just a catch-all answer for cool downs.
Good point, Josh. And we're at risk of getting technical if we explore this too far. But you're right. You know, stretching kind of pulls away the muscle fibers, and what we don't want to do before exercise is reduce them, because we want them to be connected as much as possible, because that helps us produce our power. So any stretching that you do beforehand, as demonstrated in the video and the warm-up, is they should be active and dynamic in nature. So we don't really want to be doing what we would class static stretching, where you take a joint or a muscle to its end range and hold it there for a period of time. That can be quite detrimental to strength and power performance. So any stretching that you do before exercise definitely needs to be active and or dynamic. And as Dale mentioned, stretching afterwards isn't always brilliant, but it's an opportunity that static stretching after exercise is safer than before, definitely.
Anything else? Anyone? Any more questions?
When you're at training session, should you have only a maximum 6? And what's the best way of training Goalball sessions?
Can you repeat that question again for me, please?
So at training sessions, should you only have a maximum of 6 people? And what should you be doing at a training session? Like just practicing mattresses, or what should be the best way?
Is this in relation to the current situation with?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're actually going to be picking up on that next week. There's going to be some more Club Matters information going out, so we'll tell you more about that then.
Yeah, so I think that's
what's
a hard question.
What's a bear? Oh, that's the first time I've heard it.
The bear walk.
The bear crawl.
Bear crawl.
Yes. Well, then, Matt, demonstrate, Matt.
if only I had the room.
Oh.
So the bear crawl is an exercise when you're in what we would call a kneel on all fours position. So your hands and your feet are on the floor, Abu,
Yep.
as if you were going to crawl, and then basically you just crawl the distance that you've got in front of you. So if you're on the court, you can go 18 meters. You could go 6 meters if it was hard to go any further. And the idea is that you keep your back as flat like a tabletop. So you're using your core muscles to help stabilize you, and you move, taking small steps of your hands and your feet along the court. If you fancy a challenge, you could try coming backwards to the start where you came from. You can turn around. It's just a crawling variation, but bear walks because it looks a little bit like a bear when they walk in the forest.
No, I think whenever next time the hole is open or whenever it changes, I'm gonna try it.
Yeah.
Your knees are off the ground, aren't they, as you move in?
Just about, yeah. Your knees,
Not like a baby crawl, just up on your feet. Yeah.
are on the ground, but your knees are only about an inch or so off the ground.
All right. All right, I think we'll wrap it up there then. So I'll say thank you very much for everyone for coming in on the call today. Hopefully we've shared some wisdom and knowledge. That's right, GB men, wisdom and knowledge. And yeah, just say thank you very much for the time, and hopefully we'll be back in touch on the rest of them. Just one reminder, we do have the AGM coming up on Tuesday. If you haven't already signed up, it is important. It is your membership, it's your organisation. So if you can sign up on the email I sent out today, or that you've signed up from, and get yourself logged in for the AGM on Tuesday night at 6:15. Right.